I wore Jordans. I was in NXT. I'm brought up to Raw. Who wears Jordans? Shane McMahon. Am I going to be okay wearing these? I don't know. So that first day of work, I brought a pair of Adidas Kobe Bryant Crazy 8s with me just in case I couldn't, right? But basically, Saturday, me and Big Cass did Stone Cold's podcast the day of TakeOver, and the next day is WrestleMania. We don't know that we're debuting. So we sit through a whole Stone Cold podcast not knowing we're about to be on Raw, and we don't tell Stone Cold. So we go to TakeOver, and they bum rush us with cameras and tell us to go meet Hunter, and then we get told we're going to debut on Raw, Enzo and Cass, at TakeOver. And, like, you know, we cry, like, tears of joy. My family's flown there because I had a feeling that we were going to debut. This is the first NXT TakeOver that Enzo and Cass are not booked. Like, why aren't we booked? You know? Granted, FTR and Gable and Jordan, American Alpha. Glad Enzo and Cass weren't in that match, right, dude? For you guys and for us. Because, wow, I mean, those Gable, Jordan, FTR matches, some of the best tag team wrestling has ever seen. Ever. You didn't get to keep having that because Jordan broke his freaking neck, literally. But they didn't, you know, Kurt Angle won a gold medal with it. I think we're smarter these days, you know. But I think Jordan's doing just fine working with the company now in a backstage role. But him and Gable, when they were working together, were amazing. So that was the tag team picture. It was great. And we got to work with great tag teams. And now we're coming to work, we find out, with the Dudleys. And I find out that that's what we're debuting against. But we don't know if we're wrestling or cutting a promo or both. So I show up to WrestleMania Hotel Sunday night after WrestleMania. So I found out Saturday night I'm going to Raw. So we watch WrestleMania all day knowing we're going to be on Raw tomorrow. And I get to the hotel after Mania's over, and the lobby is just riddled with all of the greats in pro wrestling because it's the WWE hotel. As I'm walking up to my room, because I'm debuting the next day, I'm not going to the WrestleMania after party. I have no desire to go drink or anything. I'm going to rehearse my promo. I don't know if I have a match, get hydrated and not dehydrated. And I see Stone Cold in the lobby at the bar, and he's with DDP. And so I walk over to say hello to Stone Cold, and I said, hey, man, and he just turned and popped for me. And at the time, Austin loved Enzo and Cass in NXT. So I just wanted to let him know I'm going to Raw tomorrow. If you don't mind, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow. Maybe you could tune in. You know, it would be cool if I know that Stone Cold watches me debuting. So I went up to Stone Cold, and I just wanted to say, like, hey, man, can I get some advice? In the moment I asked Stone Cold for advice, mind you, there's a glass wall with a bunch of marks standing outside of the hotel who can all see inside the hotel lobby. You know, there's so many marks out there, like, trying to get an eye view to see who's talking to who and shit. I was hanging out with, at the time, my buddy Spiff TV, and he had brought The Weeknd and his manager, Cash, with him. Because in NXT, I was really close with this guy named Spiff TV, and I still am. He's one of my best friends. But Carlos, this guy Spiff, is a big wrestling fan, but he's all up in the music scene. So he brought Cash with him to WrestleMania, who's The Weeknd's manager. Bro, for an hour, Stone Cold looked at me and went, you're debuting tomorrow? Bing! Laser beam, sucked me right in. I was sitting there, and he just wouldn't look at anyone else in the whole bar the night after WrestleMania for like an hour straight giving me advice. And it was gospel. But the gist of this advice was pretty much like, DTA, get your shit in, pull no punches, and if you're going against the Dudleys tomorrow, them. Do whatever the you think is necessary to get yourself over. Don't even think about them at all. Them. them, them. And this is Stone Cold talking to me. Right? He said, they had their time. It's your time. Go take it. And I'm like, holy. Meanwhile, DDP is standing there the whole time just watching this happen with his buddy Ken. Now, Ken, I know now. I met Ken like 3 years ago. And he was like, hey, man, I was there that night when you talked to Stone Cold for like an hour. And he wouldn't. So here's the reason why I'm bringing this story up. When this happens, remember that night at Mania, Shane McMahon fell off the top of the cage and through the table with Undertaker. And the first time I saw Shane since then was he came through the curtain at Gorilla. And he pushed a few people out of the way, me being one of them, so he could puke in a trash can right after he got done with that. Could you imagine never wrestling for years and then going out there jumping off that cage? Like, his body was just probably in shock. So I think he went and got an IV. He was fine, right? But, like, bro, he came through the curtain and he just like, that was the first time I meet him. I'm almost like, hey, oh my God, move. He pukes in a trash can, right? I'm like, so now I'm in the hotel after that night talking to Stone Cold, and Shane McMahon walks up. And Shane McMahon is standing behind Stone Cold, and Stone Cold is dead set on talking to me. And I'm like, I've never met Shane. This is the boss of the company's son. Like, how do I tell Stone Cold that Shane McMahon is waiting to talk to him for about 10, 15 minutes with his kids and his wife? I'm not joking. It's getting very awkward. And DDP is standing there, and I feel him looking at me and Austin. But Austin is so gunned in on giving me this, like this great advice. And I'm just like, trying not to be rude to Shane, but at the same time, I'm taking the advice. And finally, I kind of like break, and I'm like, hey, Austin, like, I want to tell him that Shane's there. And he goes, son, shut the up and look at me and while I'm trying to teach you how to get over. Now, I'll never forget the words that he said was, shut the fuck up while I'm teaching you how to get over. While I'm teaching you how to get over. That's what he says, right? And DDP will attest to this. So I'm standing there, and I'm like, okay. So I just shut the up. And he goes on for another 10 or 15 minutes. Then all of a sudden, he goes, hey, Shane, how are you, brother? He knew he was there the whole time, bro. He was big leaguing him. He was big boying him. He was being Stone Cold. But I'm just a young boy, not realizing what's going on. And to this day, like, the most awkward, weird, wildest scenario to find yourself in. So the very next day, I see Shane McMahon at Raw, where I'm debuting. And I walk up to Shane McMahon, and I'm like, one-on-one when I'm in a hallway, so it's kind of like I gotta say hello. And I'm like, hey, man, how are you? I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Enzo Amore. I was with Steve. He goes, I know. I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't. He's like, that was just Steve being Steve. Don't worry. I was like, all right. I meant to ask you, man. I wear Jordans, and I didn't know if you would be all right with me wearing them, so I brought another pair of shoes just in case you said no. And he was like, are they Jordan 1s? I was like, no. He's like, wear whatever you want. I was like, all right, cool. Then, a few months later, we're at Payback, the pay-per-view where I got knocked out, right? And before the show, Shane McMahon comes up to me and he's like, yo, Enzo, come here. Come see me in my locker room when you get a sec. I'm like, all right, cool. I go to him in the locker room. He's like, yo, check these out. They're for you. He gave me a pair of Derek Jeter Jordan 1 retro sneakers because when we were talking like a few weeks later about that thing with Stone Cold, I was like, hey, man, that was crazy. We started talking about sneakers. And he asked me what my favorite shoe is. And I said Derek Jeter Jordan 1 is my favorite, hands down. I just would never buy it because I don't have the money to buy it right now. But maybe in a few years here, I'll go get some. And he gifted me a pair of those. I wore them at SummerSlam when I wrestled Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens in the opener. I got nothing but great things to say about Shane. I know there's been some, controversy with the name as of late. But I hope that people can separate that, we don't have all the answers and we don't know who knew what or what was ever going on with any situation. And you can't choose your father, and you can't choose what family you're born into. And you can't, so I just hope that one day McMahon's grandkids, Stephanie's kids, Shane's kids. I hope they break in the biz. I really do. Yeah.